we've been waiting for this for a long time. So for about 2.5 years now, I've been working on an 89 Dodge short box four-wheel drive pickup truck that I used to own. I used to drive in high school, and it was my daily for years. And it's been a good project. It's been fun. But you know what? Finally, it's on the road. And you have no idea how excited I am. If you look behind me, there's actually a little bit of room in my garage now. And I'm just super excited about that. Just the fact that we can get a few miles under it, start working on the shakedown and get it sorted out as to what all we might have to do left. But anyway, if you're interested in my project and what we've done with it so far, stick around. I'll show you all about it. We started this project about 2.5 years ago. This was my daily driver 4x4 project from about 1995 till maybe 2004, when it got stored away and kind of forgotten about. Fast forward to 2019, I decided I might as well just get rid of the truck. It's just been sitting around, rotting into the ground, so I loaded it up on a trailer that I borrowed from a buddy and brought it home where I thought it might be easy to sell. It wasn't running because of bad fuel pump at the time, so I thought I'd just get it running, send it down the road. But then my son stepped in. Well, my son saw it up on the trailer, and he said something that made my eyes light up so bright. "Dad, please don't sell the old truck. I want it." I was so happy. I was really looking forward for any reason to keep it, but my wife, not so much. So from then on, we made a plan and got to it. Here's where we made mistake number one. We tore it down to the bare frame with a plan to clean up and paint that frame and build it up from there. This was a mistake because it never was intended to be a show truck, so I never should have gone that deep into it. Sometime around here is where we made mistake number two. We never really kept good enough track of the bolts, nuts, clips, etc. We started out bagging and tagging everything, but quickly got so wrapped up in the fun we were having that this very important step kind of went to the wayside. Always bag and tag your small parts when you do any project, large or small. Trust me, your memory won't be as good as you think it is. So there we were with a nice painted frame. Quickly made a roller out of it. We installed the front and rear Dana 68 volt axles with the 410 gears that it previously had. We used the old 4-inch Rancho springs and a shackle flip in the back. It got cheap Summit Racing brand shocks front and rear and a Skyjacker steering stabilizer. After a bit of driving that we have done, it rides amazingly well for what it is. We installed the motor, transfer case, exhaust into the bare frame. Man, that's the easiest drivetrain install I've ever done. We were super lucky with the cab. There was almost no rust on the entire thing. The floor was super solid except for one cab mount that was easy to fab up and replace. Once the bottom of the cab floor was cleaned up and undercoated, it got remarried to the frame with new cab mounts. The bodywork was an adventure. I'd never done really any bodywork prior to this project. I was able to find rust-free fenders and doors, which really helped, and all the cab really needed was minor rocker repair. But the box, which I did find one in much better shape than the original, was many hours of welding to make it right. This was honestly one of the most enjoyable parts of the job, and it turned out really well, I think. I replaced pieces above the wheel wells like all these trucks need, and I patched in the inner fender wells too, kind of like a patchwork quilt sort of deal. The only other area that needed major attention was the area below and inside the taillight housings. This took a ton of time, and I used pieces cut from a super rough 8-foot box that a guy was going to send to the scrapper anyway. Overall, the box is fairly straight, and it should last for a long time now. Here's a good place to talk about mistake number 3. In my big rush to blast and paint my show quality frame for a driver quality truck, I tore all the brake lines off, thinking, I'll just redo them with new lines. It'll be easy. Well, it isn't that hard, but it was time consuming and certainly not free. And really, there's just no value to that whole exercise. I should have just left them in place. So now, I have a nice frame with a cab that I decided to gut right out. That's right. Mistake number 4 was gutting the cab right out because my son thought we needed to change the red interior to black. Though it does look great in black, had we left the interior whole and original, we would have likely been done months earlier. It was a huge amount of work getting the wiring and interior back in there, and much of the plastic trim got broke up when removing it. Unfortunately, lots of the exterior stuff will have to be redone in the coming years. I reused the stock wiring harness but modified it to work with an old school Mopar electronic ignition and a carburetor. If you're going to do this, get a factory service manual. The diesel trucks of the same years didn't use the computer, so things that used to be controlled by the computer that you need can still be done like they were on the diesel trucks. The original TBI 318 is gutless and not easy to modify for more power. We went with a 360 Magnum, converted to carburetor, and a 670 Holley vacuum secondary carb that I just happen to have. This will eventually get some form of fuel injection, but for now, it'll be great the way it is. I kept the 727 automatic and had it rebuilt. Sometimes I wish I'd have gone with a A518 overdrive automatic. But since this won't really be a highway cruiser, the rebuilt 727 will be just fine. After that's the stock NP241 transfer case. Came with a factory fixed rear yoke, which I like better than the slip yoke at the back of the transfer case. I had custom drive shafts made when I installed the Dana 60s years ago. Don't even remember what size U-joints they are, but I think they're like the stock half-ton size because I couldn't afford to do a huge U-joint upgrade at the time. But they'll work for what they're doing. Paintwork was a really interesting part of this project for me. I'd never painted anything. I was always kind of scared of it. And you know what? Really, it's not that big of a deal. And what everybody says about prep being 99% of a good paint job is absolutely true. There's no arguing that, so don't even try. Now, one thing I will say, you can absolutely get a decent looking paint job in a home garage. The only thing that I learned from this is put lots of coats of paint on it and use lots of coats of clear. And realistically, for your first paint job, don't worry about using cheaper material, because I used auto body grade paint and clear, and realistically for my first paint job I kind of wish that I would have gone ahead and done the the trim clad paint job or whatever like that, just to learn how to spray paint, how to do things like that. It turned out fairly well. I did get some amount of runs in my clear coat, and in an effort to polish up and clean out those runs, we kind of messed up the exterior of the job. It looks okay, it looks good from a distance, but it's one of them things that I'm really going to want to redo at some point. But the nice thing is the jams are done, and it will just be like an exterior paint job that I do if and when I get around to doing it. So that won't be so bad. That'll be a whole lot easier than having to do the complete color change type of thing like we did. Now, the main reason we did a color change is because it was a metallic paint originally, and I really didn't want to try and do a metallic paint job on my first job. But you know what? Overall, it turned out real well. I'm super happy with it the way it is. We upgraded the seats to a newer set of seats out of a 96 Dodge. It was a real bonus over the factory bench seat. It's kind of a pain. It's not that big of a deal to do. I did make a video specific to this installation that'll give you a little more information if you want it. Tires are 35 12.5 18s on 18 by 9 inch wheels.
Wheels run a lot of backspace because I didn't want the tires to stick way out. That's a real cop magnet around here. These wheels are designed for a more modern truck, and all the backspace caused it to hit the steering arm at full right turn. We had to go with an off-road design crossover steering kit to solve this. It sets up the steering the way the factory does it on modern trucks. What a beautifully engineered kit. Although we haven't drove it much, I think it will make for a much nicer handling vehicle all the way around. I did create a video specifically on that installation that shows a little more detail on what we did there.
Junkyard engine's got decent oil pressure. It's warmed up to about 160 now and it's still just about 50 pounds. Pretty happy with that. So that's just a high-level overview of what we did and kind of a little bit of how we did it. I've got a few other videos on just different individual areas like the steering and the seat installation and a couple other things if a person is interested in a little more information. But for now, hope you enjoyed the little tour through our project. Thanks for watching.